Dr. Derek Bubb, how are you?
I'm great. I'm great. How are you, Matt?
Man, this has been the wildest journey of my life. Having the number of interviews and talking about the number of different things, especially on a state level, it is exciting. You're here today to talk about the best public schools in the state of Idaho, what is required to make them the best, what best means in public school, because best in public school generally means quantifiably from an academic standpoint, this is what we're doing. And it's not a feeling that people have. It's not an opinion that people have. It's like, listen, these are our test scores. I want to know about those because there's a lot being said about the successes and more specifically the failures of our public education system. And I think every system can get better. But understanding what the system is and what it can produce and what it does produce in some areas is really, really important. So again, thank you for coming. Talk to me about some of the schools in West Ada. Now, again, to be clear, West Ada is in the Treasure Valley. It's home to roughly 40,000 students. We have a myriad of economic positions. We have, homeless students that go to school in West Ada. We have students that are very high end with, a lot of financial backing. So you guys cover a myriad of people in different demographics.
Yeah. So I'll start with, I think the first thing I could say is this. I truly believe in school choice. To my core, school choice is what parents need. Everybody has a different educational experience. I will argue that West Ada offers that school choice. And I'm going to kind of go through what that looks like within West Ada. Number one, I think what people look at when they're looking at schools, when they're trying to figure out, okay, where do I want my kid to go to school? They want high academic achievement. Right. We are the highest ranked public school when it comes to, not my bias. Obviously, I can sit here and say, hey, we do great things, but let's really talk about data. When it comes to math scores, proficiency at the end of each grade level, we are the highest ranked public school system in the state of Idaho. When it comes to ELA scores, we are the number one public school district when it comes to ELA scores. When it comes to reading scores, which is really important, we know that there's a lot of data that if students aren't proficient in reading, they're not reading at grade level at the end of third grade, that there's going to be a lot of challenges for them for the rest of school. That comes without a whole lot of background, but there's a lot of data out there that says that's an important data point. Right. And so we look really hard at that. And our teachers do an amazing job making our kids get to those proficiency levels, which means, when I use the word proficiency, that really means at grade level for each of them. But we're proud of the work we're doing. So then I just decided, hey, you know what?
May I interrupt and add one
Keep
more
going.
in?
Yes.
I put out a clip months ago about that West Ada and Idaho in general is like best bang for its buck. And I did make an articulation that West Ada was probably top 10% in the country. That's actually not true. West Ada is ranked nationwide district 517th out of 11,116 districts, which puts you in the top 5%. You're the 95th percentile for all districts in the country. Now, look, that's just the way these rankings go. Now, if people want to say yes, and that's all well and fine, but it didn't work for my kid, I understand that and great. Or if somebody wants to say, I graduated from a West Ada school and it was trash, okay, great. I don't know what to tell you. That's what the ranking is. And I guarantee you get 40,000 people in a room together. You're going to have somebody who's like, hey, this situation didn't work for me. Okay. But categorically, from an objective standpoint, ranking systems that you're not in control of, people have put West Ada at 517th out of 11,116.
Yeah, and that parlays great to my next conversation. It's great to be number one in the state of Idaho. We're proud of that. Right. It's not about being number one. It's getting as many kids to proficiency level as we possibly can, giving them a good experience in school and all of those things. And we're really just focused on the academics. I'll get to some of the other pieces in a second. I then took all of the other states that prescribe to the Smarter Balance Consortium. And Smarter Balance Consortium is really what we know of as ISAT here in the state of Idaho. A lot of other states are part of that. They give the exact same test or something very similar. And the nice thing about having other states that offer that is we can then compare. And when you compare West Ada, if West Ada was its own state, I know there's this idea that West Ada is the great state of Ada. I will tell you this. If West Ada was its own state, we would be the number one ranked school district out of all of the states in ELA. We'd be the number two ranked school district in mathematics.
Wait, so this is like the statistic where people say if California was its own country, it would be like the 5th largest economy or 6th largest economy or something like that. So you're saying if you literally just made a state that,
Correct.
and West Ada was the entire public school system of that state, we would be the #1 public education state in the country.
In ELA and #2 in math, behind, I believe, Connecticut, and I can check my facts on that. I believe behind Connecticut. And then when you look at tax dollars, I mean, if you're going to do a comparison, that's where it becomes the best value in education. When you look at what our overall tax dollar is compared to the state that is beating us, I think we're doing a phenomenal job. And that's a huge credit to the talented folks that we have in the classrooms every single day. So that touches on the academic side.
And to be clear, I have kids that go to West Ada schools. I have kids that go to charter schools, and I am in the West Ada district. So even for me as a father, I'm saying, hey, look, West Ada works phenomenally for, a certain portion of my kids, and then a charter school works better for a certain portion of my kids. So it's not like, I recognize that people are different, and I love that in Idaho we have a charter school option that works for my family. And I love in Idaho that we have the West Ada that works well for my family. Does it work well for all of the kids even in my family unit? Absolutely not. But we have that publicly funded school choice so that we were able to move kids around. It's at no cost. My family is not well off enough that I could afford private schools at this point. But with the breakdown of kids and successes and personalities that I have in programs are in, I'm not looking for that money. That's not to say that there's not another family. It's like, oh no, private school is the only option. That's fine. But again, just to be clear, like even for me, I enjoy the school choice offered by the state of Idaho.
So Matt, you took the words out of my mouth. I mean, that really is why I support school choice. I think in 1995, it was a one-size-fits-all model, meaning every kid goes to school, you take your 6 classes a day, and you grunt through it, and you walk across stage at the end of 12th grade, and life is good. Today, we have different options for kids. West Ada itself has different options for kids. We now have 3 charters, Meridian Technical, Meridian Medical, and now we just brought on PI, which is Pathways in Education for some students that have some additional challenges. We have those options. In addition to that, we have what we call schools of choice.
And if I may be clear, okay, so when you say you have charters, that means West Ada is the administrative overseer of that charter school. So it's not technically in the West Ada school district, but you are overseeing it and making sure it functions properly.
Correct. We have a charter with them, meaning we have oversight of them. Yes. We're in partner with them.
Gotcha.
I'll use Meridian Technical and Meridian Medical as the two. We have really, really good relationships with them. They have, a lot of times we provide busing for them. We provide technical services. We provide, they're within our power schools. They are part of West Ada. They are partners with us. They take part in our professional development, all of those things. We have a great partnership with those 2 schools. PI is run by an outside entity. We still have oversight of them, but it's been a great partnership. And the advantage to us in a place like Pathways in Education is we get first priority to make sure our kids have an opportunity to go there. They have their own school identity. They have their own school identity number with the state, and so they have some independence from us. I don't go over there and say, "Hey, how are you teaching math?" or "How are you teaching English?" But we do have the rights to make sure that our students have first priority there. It doesn't mean other students don't get an option to go to PI, but our students have that first priority. That is school choice. Within our own district, not charter schools, we also have STEM academies. K through 12. Well, I'll say we have STEM academies at the elementary school level, but then we have advanced science classes in the middle school and high schools. We have arts academies. We have one of the greatest arts academies in the state, Idaho Fine Arts Academy. It was just recognized nationally as one of the best arts academies. Right next to our district office, which provides our students not only the English and math that we care about, but it also provides our students with an outlet within the arts, if that's their passion. Right next to that, we have Renaissance, which is what I would consider our advanced placement school. It's really our students that have high ambition and academic drive, and they really want to work hard to in the classroom, and that's their focus. And I'm going to tell you, they do some amazing things. When I looked at their test scores, they're always one of the top schools, not just in the state of Idaho. It's easy to say, hey, we're great in the state of Idaho. In the United States. I just pulled these down from Niche. So if I'm wrong, this data came straight from Niche, but Renaissance High School, average SAT score, 1,270. Bishop Kelly, 1,260. Eagle High School, 1,210. Nampa Christian, 1,220. Coal Valley, 1,220. Those are really good data points. That's the only data point we have right now to compare ourselves to our neighbors. And is comparison healthy? Yes. Anybody that knows me, I love competition. I may love more to be able to say, hey, we're number one and we're doing great things. Not because I have to have number one. I don't have a number one on my back or feel like, we're number one because we have great people in our classrooms and we're providing great service. At the end of the day, our goal is to make sure that our kids have opportunities at the end of 12th grade.
Okay, there's a lot here. All good data points. I think if you go up against somebody that wants quantifiable academic data points, you make a really good case. West Ada, however, beyond the academics and beyond the scores, and again, this is coming from a parent who recognizes like it's not a one size fits all. So even though you have a lot of options, you have a lot of school choices, medical, fine arts, hardcore academics, whatever it might be, you have a lot of options. You also, over the last several years, have taken up the charge with concerns that the broader culture has, the broader population has. Things like your flag policy. Representative Hill right now is running a bill in the state of Idaho that says, hey, in Idaho public schools, you should not be able to fly any flag besides the United States flag and the Idaho flag. West Ada has had this policy for years. When there was a big discussion about library books, and again, the legislature has been grappling with the propriety of some books in public libraries, both school and public libraries just in general in communities, West Ada on its own was already removing, to great criticism by some people, removing books that it felt was inappropriate without the state telling it to. You have a lot of different, you have neutral classrooms, meaning that you cannot discuss politics in classrooms. Now, that doesn't mean you can't discuss history. Like people always come after me like, oh, well, you can't do history without politics. Yeah, listen, man, if you want to talk founding fathers, I understand that's politics, right? But you can't come into a classroom and say President Trump is great or President Trump is bad. That's expressly forbidden as a policy. You have these things that people in a broader cultural sentiment are saying, hey, we're worried about this in public education.
Yeah. So here's what I would say. At the end of the day, our ultimate goal is to make sure that our kids walk across the stage at the end of 12th grade with opportunities. We have tried to create what we call a distraction-free environment. That means that if we're going to have things in our classroom that support learning, that teach kids how to read, write, do math, gosh, you know what? Those things need to be there. If it's a periodic table, those things need to be there. But outside of that, our job is to make it distraction free. And as much as we're trying to say, well, but this is, we have this up because we want this kid to feel welcome. Okay, great. But it also may exclude kids. And so that's really hard to determine how one kid feels about any type of political sign or any type of, whatever it might be. So we've just said, we're going to eliminate them all. And I will tell you, as I walk classrooms, it looks great. And we have a high level of learning go on in every single one of our classrooms. And it's as distraction free as possible. It's not perfect. We ask, we look at it. Our administrators help to manage it. It's not always perfect, but I'll tell you what, we do. I think our schools do a really good job maintaining a distraction-free environment.
That's great. A question for you about requirements, because one commentary there's a push to go for a school choice that's state funded, either at like the $5,000 level or the $9,750 level, I believe. And I haven't had Representative Hostetler come in yet, but I'm hopeful to get him in because I want to understand his position and the things he wants from his bill. I did have Senator Den Hartog on, fantastic conversation, but the Senator Den Hartog was talking about changing accountability. And she said, we need to reimagine. I don't think she said reimagine. She's like, we need to rethink accountability. She said the school should be accountable to the parents, right? And the idea is that if you have a parent that goes to a private school and engages in the private school with state funding, and that private school does not deliver on whatever that parent wants, then that school has to deal with the parent leaving. Because the parent's like, hey, we're paying you this money. Sure. Like, I don't like what you're doing. I'm leaving. And the private school either has to adjust if they lose enough people, or they say like, well, that person was unreasonable. They can make whatever decision they want based on that. And I thought about them like, okay, I can kind of like, that's so different than what we do with every other penny that comes out of the government. Like we don't, when we maintain park systems, right? Parks and Rec, we say, hey, you have to cut the lawn like this. You got to fertilize it like this. We don't say, hey, landscaping crew, why don't you just ask the people in the park what they want, right? That's a different thing. It's like, no, we're going to fertilize it. It's like we have a standard of care essentially of our Parks and Rec. So it was a different way of doing it. And I thought, okay, well, look, if we're going to introduce competition and you are saying, let's make the private schools accountable to parents, why don't we just make the public schools accountable to parents? Because that's not, they're accountable to parents, but they're also accountable to the state and the federal government. And Representative Lent actually came in recently and explained he had introduced an idea that it's like, listen, if we're going to give this money out, if we're going to expand these funds going to different parents, then like we really should just yank all the state requirements, which led to how many state and federal requirements do we have? I come to find out it's like almost 130 between state and federal. So talk to me about the requirements that West Ada, like you're accountable. Yeah. Not just to parents like me who might be like, hey, I'm going to take my kid to a charter school. And, you know, eventually that you're accountable for that. That affects the district. But beyond that, you're accountable to like 130 different agencies and policies that you have to track and maintain. Is that roughly accurate?
That is 100% accurate. I mean, I think the easy way to look at this is every dollar we spend, we really are accountable. I'll say to three entities. We're accountable to parents. Parents absolutely have a say in their kids' education. And, I think there's plenty of examples in which a parent has emailed me and I want to know more. And I want to know what the parent experience is. And I pick up the phone and I call them. There's no better situation in which a parent says, you're calling me over this? Yes, because I want to know, because I am accountable to our patrons. I want to know. And it doesn't even mean a parent. It could be a patron who doesn't have kids in school that wants to hear about things. Well, then let's walk through that. Let's talk about that. We should be able to defend our position and justify that. So that's one entity we're held accountable to. We're also held accountable, and I'll put state and school board in the same group, but we'll call it local government, state government officials. We have a school board that is elected by the patrons in this community. They're elected and they sit on the school board. They provide us really good guidance. We sit down and we arm wrestle over things that we're doing within the district. How do we make things better? How do we make the experience better for every single one of our students? Every single one of them cares deeply about our kids and making sure that their experience is a good experience. We're accountable to the state in that same breath. As I talk to Superintendent Critchfield all the way through the State Department, they really care about the educational experience for every single one of our kids. We also report that to the legislature. So I'm going to put all of that in a second group. That is like our elected officials, whether that be school board, whether it be Superintendent Critchfield.
But elected by the people.
But elected by the people. And then the third, we're also accountable to the federal government, in which we have to report back to the federal government and say, and we get audited by the federal government. We just got done with a food and nutrition services audit. How are we serving our kids? We had a title funds audit not too long ago. What are you doing to meet the needs of your kids? Like, we get people to come in and look at every single piece of paper. There's not very many businesses out there. I don't know of any businesses out there, private industry businesses out there, that see that level of accountability. And I guarantee you don't see it in the private sector of our schools.
Well, okay. I actually got a copy of some of these, and some of the requirements are things like the McKinney-Vento homeless education requirement, and there's a federal requirement, and it applies to everyone. I don't like. We can go down Title IX sex discrimination, Title VI civil rights discrimination. Again, these are federal requirements. Then you have Section 504. I have no idea what 504 is. You go down Title I, C, migrant, Title I-D, negligent delinquent, right? Educator effectiveness, English learners, state requirements for English learners, federal requirements for English learners, safe schools, Title IV, right? Safe and drug-free programs. That's a state program requiring all. You have to go through all of these things. Now, I would assume that you go to a private, like Bishop Kelly, and Bishop Kelly's like, look, we don't want drugs in this school. Like 100%. They're like,
no question.
We want a safe school where if we have a cafeteria, we're not serving them ketchup and syrup, like just as their main, like they want these things. And I'm sure they can I'm sure Bishop Kelly does a great job with these things, but Bishop Kelly likely doesn't have to justify their existence or prove that they're doing these things to larger governing bodies through like a bureaucratic mechanism. And again, they're likely doing all of these things, but just doing them and then proving that you're doing them is an added layer that brings an administrative class of people, which is, hey, you have to exist in our school district just so we can prove that we're doing the things that people are requiring us to do.
Yeah. And Matt, it's a good point. I want to make this really clear. I have a lot of respect for what our private schools do.
Yeah,
they
sure.
do a great job for a population of our kids. I would consider the head of schools at Bishop Kelly a friend. They do an amazing job over there. So that's not to take anything away from them. They probably have an internal organization that they answer to, which would be comparable to us answering to our school board. The difference is our school board is elected. I'm not familiar enough with how theirs works,
Sure.
I'm sure they answer to somebody. We answer to several sources to make sure that every single dollar, because there's an extra burden when we take on tax dollars. I don't at all, you'll never hear me say, well, private schools should answer to more people as they sit today. They're a private industry. I don't think private industries, I don't need
more
regulation on private industries.
Yeah,
not at all. But once you start to take tax dollars, once you start to take those taxpayer dollars, should there be some level of accountability? Yes. I think where people differ a little bit is, what does accountability look like? Does that mean we strip accountability from public schools? Does that mean we put the same level of accountability on private schools? Do we have audits on all of these things? That's a really hard question to answer that we have to grapple with as we start to consider school vouchers and public funds going over to private entities. And I've even spoken to some of our private school leaders that have said, gosh, what does this look like? Does that mean we're accountable to some of these things? And I think it becomes a slippery slope and trying to decide what that looks like. The easiest way for me, when I talk about accountability, I'm a data person. Easiest way for me is, at the end of the day, let's all sit down and take the same test. Let's all sit down and take the ISAT. If we're going to take public funds, let's all sit down and take the ISAT. That may grow us. We want competition in schools. Okay, well then let's keep score the same exact way. Let's all sit down and let's take it. And I don't know that the ISAT is the perfect test, so that I'm not at all advocating for that. I'm just saying, let's find a common test that we're all going to sit down, we're all going to take, and we're all going to say, hey, this is where our kids ended up at the end of second grade, third grade, fifth grade, 12th grade. And these are the opportunities they have. And you know what? Does that make us better? I think we'll still end up at the top of the heap. I think when we talk about school choice, I think West Ada is the first choice in education in the state of Idaho. I'm proud of that work. And we can sit and talk about academics. I think the other thing that West Ada offers that you won't see at a lot of other places, or maybe any other places, is the level of CTE programs. We don't believe that every single student has to go to college. What we do believe in is at the end of 12th grade, when they walk across that stage, they can look me in the eye as I shake every single kid's hand, and I can say, for our 3,000 graduates, I can say, you know what? You are going to have opportunities after this, whether that be going to military, to go to some post-secondary training, to go to a university. You're going to have those opportunities because we have provided you with some training. We have kids that are graduating with their certified nursing assistance license. We have kids that are working at St. Luke's. We have kids that are working in pharmaceuticals. We have kids that are working in auto mechanics. We have kids that are, we have everything. We have kids that are working for the Metal Workers Association. And so all of those pieces lend us to our job is, I will say, I think West Ada is the largest workforce development, K-12 workforce development system in the state of Idaho. And I think we do a really darn good job. Evidence of that, yes, test scores are great, but also CTE programs, what our kids are coming out with. Sometimes it is, I learned that I didn't want to do that. That's a great lesson as well. That you're able to learn that while you're in high school, not going through 2 years of a program, 3 years of a nursing program, and then figuring out that, I don't really like the sight of blood. Those are all really important things. High school, middle school, and elementary school has changed drastically over the last, I'll say 10 to 15 years. 1995 to 1895, it probably looked very similar. Today, education's changed. And so we know that if we're not changing, if we're not improving, and I say we as a state, I have yet to meet a superintendent or a group of leaders in public education that have said, hey, we're just good where we're at. Everybody's working really hard to make sure their kids get across the finish line with skills that they need to be able to contribute to the workforce. Those are all things that where I say, man, public education is doing really, really good things. You just have to come in and look and see what those things are. And our door's open. I always tell people, come in, come look at things. We were talking earlier, come look at things. If you're hearing, I want to know what that looks like. Okay, well, let's go look at some of the opportunities our kids have in a fiscally responsible way. We put kids on buses. I almost said ship kids. We don't ship kids. We put kids on buses and bring them over to CTE centers because we don't want to have a CTE center at every single one of our campuses. We know that that's not fiscally responsible. So we have CTE centers at both Meridian High School and Renaissance High School, big centers. That allows us to say, hey, you know what? We can serve all of our kids at one center and we can give them those opportunities. And then they walk away with countless opportunities, whether that be, getting a welding certificate and then deciding I'm going to go into engineering. What a great skill that you have. You know how to weld and now you're an engineer. Or you getting a CNA certificate and I'm going to work at St. Luke's while I'm going to nursing school at Boise State. Like those are opportunities that we just haven't seen before.
One more thing that's less fun to talk about, but Representative Lent, I always screw him up, Representative or Senator David Lent,
Gotcha.
Mr. Lent, okay, who's one of our elected officials. He actually had a really good point the other day when I was talking to him. He's like, listen, if you want to talk about parent rights, you have no rights in the private sector. And I was like, yeah, like he was like, you can get kicked out. You can do, they can do whatever. And that I started thinking about the number of cases where people had gone to private schools and, because people assumed that the private school, or they felt the private school was better, they were going to give it a shot, whatever it was. And they didn't have great experiences. One is a dear friend of mine whose friends or his students go to a smaller Christian school. And he said that the level of cell phone problems that they're experiencing at this small Christian school with people doing very unchristian-like things with their cell phones is horrific. And, juxtapose that to West Ada, which, essentially bans cell phones in classrooms. And he can't do anything about it. Now, they could leave the school, disrupt his children and the children's friends and all of these things, but he doesn't, that's an issue. I have another example of a school in the area who, friends' kids go there and they were talking to a former student of the school and saying like, hey, well, you don't go to the school anymore. And again, there's a private school. And the student said, yeah, I talked a lot and I, interrupted a little bit too much or something. And they decided that I wasn't a good fit for the school and I'm gone. Right. And now the kid is homeschooled. And I was like, holy cow. Right now, mind you, I'm a chatty guy. You can imagine how my kids are like, so that I was like, whoa, I hadn't thought about that. And then I can tell you just from my own experience in my former state. We had pulled our kids from the public school for a lot of the reasons that people would imagine in California. We had pulled them and we had put them in Catholic school. And I really liked this Catholic school, not because it was even academically superior. It was inferior. We knew this. My wife and I knew this because we were SAT tutors. That's all I did my entire professional career. I knew the scores of the kids coming out of this system. They were inferior. I knew their academic capacity. It was inferior, but I put my kids there because I didn't want them dealing with the nonsense of California public schools. Now, I made that call and I'm not bagging on that system. But what I will tell you is if I was looking for academics, that was not it. I knew I could supplement my kids all the way up through whatever level they were going to. So I was like, whatever, it's fine with me. Sure. But it did give me pause where it's like, hey, we should be going to school. And it's only in the absence of a reasonable public system that I'm spending the like $30,000+. Yep. And this school is not producing better results. It's producing worse results. I was just going there because that state is different than this state. Yeah. And again, those examples where it's like, like I couldn't say anything to them about their academic performance. It was a take it or leave it. And the student that got kicked out because he talked too much, he didn't have rights to stay in that school. They're like, hey, get out of here. And my friend whose kid goes to the school that is really struggling with cell phones, they're lagging behind even the cell phone policy that West Ada has put in, which is like, hey, this is a distraction, get rid of it. And he can't do anything about it. These are all three examples. It's like, I'm pro-education. However that looks. Representative Mathias came in, I think it was last week or the week before, and I didn't know this. Like he had a voucher program where he was growing up. It's one of the oldest voucher programs. I think it was like Massachusetts or something, but his high school was a private high school and he had a voucher program through the state. And hearing him talk about that, it's like, all right, I'm pro-education. I'm not pro-public education. I'm not private. I'm not pro-charter. I'm pro-education. However we can educate our kids the best and most effectively will yield the best results for our state, our communities, our nation. I'm pro-education, right? We need to tap into the resources of our young people as aggressively as possible and develop them as effectively as possible. And I think we really need to look at, okay, what does effective education mean to you? Is it a cultural thing? Is it a religious thing? Is it an academic thing? For somebody who wants, a Bible in class every single day, the public school will probably never be able to provide that, not under our current legal system or, laws. Sure. But for people that want a really good, perhaps cultural experience and academic experience, West Ada seems to be a really good example of that done well. Will there always be problems? Yeah, there'll always be problems. Will there always be rumors like you have kitty litter boxes in your bathrooms? Yeah, which amazingly, this is like, what I told somebody the other day? This was the funniest thing ever. Somebody brought this up with another school. They're like, Bonner's Ferry has kitty litter boxes. I was like, what's amazing? I've never seen a picture of this. Everybody talks about it. Kitty litter boxes are more elusive than UFOs. Like I've at least seen trash iPhone pictures of UFOs. I've never seen a picture of a kitty litter box in a school bathroom. And everyone talks about it, and it's like Sasquatch.
It is Sasquatch. I was just going to say that.
Come on, man. At some point you have to say, I can either prove this exists or I can't prove it exists. And I've never seen anyway. But I'm pro-education. Whatever the system is, however we do it, whatever needs to happen so our kids get the best possible results. And again, gauge it however. But let's at least acknowledge okay, if you want academics, West Ada is a good option. If you want culture and academics, West Ada is doing a pretty good option. We can't guarantee whatever. If you want religion, then private school is going to be a good option. Yeah. If you want, classic academies with, for instance, no tech, we have charter schools that do that. If you want medical, okay, great. We have charter schools for that. We have all of these things. We have options. We have choices. Let's just identify what the choices are that we want. Let's, as a society and a state, all get on the same page and say, okay, these are the things we can do. These are the things we can't do. These are the things that the taxpayers should be paying for. These are the things the taxpayers should not be paying for, and just go from there.
This is why I started with I'm pro school choice. Mm-hmm. I think school choice is amazing. We have school choice in this area. And I will say this, I am here to really talk about this isn't, the voucher conversation is not a conversation about private school versus public school. It becomes that because we start to say, well, public schools are failing. Public schools are not failing. I think West Ada is an example. I think Boise School, I think there's a lot of districts out there that are an example that we can do really good things in public schools. If we're pro vouchers, let's be pro vouchers. Let's sit and say, you know what, we want to do pro vouchers. Let's not be pro vouchers because we want to be disparaging to what public education is doing. Public education is doing great things. And when I say public education, I don't mean West Ada School District. There are public charters out there that are doing really, really good things and meet the needs of the kids that are in that school. That is school choice. We have Fine Arts Academy, that is school choice. We have Medical Arts Academy, that is school choice. We are doing great things at what I would say is a very low tax rate. When you look at us in comparison to other places around the country, around the state, we maintain that at a low tax rate. We have a lot of accountability to make sure that what we're doing with our dollars is fiscally responsible, and that we're not out spending on things that we shouldn't be spending on, and that when we do spend on things, that we come back to say, yes, that was effective or that wasn't effective, and that we're meeting the needs of our parents and our kids. I have yet to meet a parent yet that when I get down to what do you ultimately want from schools, I want my kid at the end of 12th grade to have as many opportunities as possible. What that looks like for you is different than how that looks for me. And so the real question is for taxpayers, for our legislature, for our state is at what level do we say this is what the state takes care of? And this is what, if you want something additional for that, this is what you have to take care of. I went out to Crave the other night and I ordered a nice steak. And I said, hey, can I get some mushrooms on that steak? And the guy said, yeah, it's going to be $3 extra. And if I'm quoting the $3, I might be wrong. But I had to pay extra for that because I wanted mushrooms on my steak. I knew that was something I wanted. And so guess what? I'm going to have to pay a little bit more for that. You see this in the public sector all the time. I was down in Dallas, Texas, and I jumped on a toll road. And I knew that I wanted to get on that toll road because that's what I wanted to use my money on. I'm not going to the state of Texas and saying, hey, can I get a tax refund for that? I'm saying, hey, this is what I chose to do because I wanted something different. It didn't work out for me. I got stuck in worse traffic by jumping on a toll road. But we know that there are certain things that the state pays for, and there are certain things that we say this is above and beyond. I think that's the question out there for taxpayers. That's the question for our legislature to say, hey, who pays for what? How do we make people accountable? We don't give money out in any world in government and say, hey, there's no accountability at all. There has to be accountability. How we define that accountability is going to be interesting, and we'll just buckle up and see. We're excited. We're going to concentrate on what West Ada does. We're excited about the opportunities that we offer in West Ada. We're excited about the education that we offer in West Ada, from our athletics programs, our activities programs, our sports programs, obviously our academic programs, and our CT programs. It's second to none if you can give education a chance and public education a chance. Even if you don't have kids in the system, take a look at it, and it's hard to critique the great work being done across the district.
Well, you know what I think? I think we should get a hold of Crave and make mushrooms no extra charge. Because got a good mushroom and butter. God bless it. Dr. Derek Buck, thanks for coming in today. I really appreciate you. Thanks for the good work you do.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate you.